There seems to be an endless list of stress-related diseases. In fact, long before COVID came to our shores and anybody knew that word, I was actually talking to my family doctor, and I was telling her about the work I was doing with people with chronic pain. And I remember she pointed at the door of her surgery and she said, everybody who comes through my door is either maternity or some kind of stress-related illness. And she called it the epidemic of the age. And obviously this is before COVID. But her point was that like nearly everybody she sees these days, you could probably trace what they're experiencing back to stress, prolonged stressful thinking. It can show up as fibromyalgia, as burning mouth syndrome, psoriasis and eczema, asthma, allergy, migraines, hair loss, fatigue, brain fog, air hunger. I'm not a medical.
Get into the details, but we were very attracted immediately. So that happened in the afternoon, and then that evening we went to Florbel Suarez's house for a dinner, a lasagna dinner, and there were, Roger Mills was there, Keith Van Valden, several of the nurses, Karen Miller, and some of the people early involved in the three principles, maybe a dozen people, and Sydney Banks with his wife. And so that night I met Sid Banks for the first time. And we had a nice meal, and everybody was chit-chatting, and I'm being like a psychologist, family therapist, interviewing anyone. So what position in the family are you? And, just my old bullshit, pardon me. I was just doing what I do, my habit, and then all of a sudden Sid started to speak. And everybody else got really quiet and respectful. And I just kept talking to the person next to me, not noticing.
It was just, wow, it helped me do POW 2, POW 3, POW 4, POW 5, POW 6. So I went back to lovely public health then. Alison Trout was still there. Thank you, Alison. With Dr. Stephen Munday, who was the head of public health at the time. And I went to them with I just said, I'm going, I can't just keep coming back after a POW program's finished, thinking, where am I going to get another bit of help from them? I need a subcontract with you. And I've wrote it down. I knew what I wanted to ask for, and I went along to this meeting and I asked them for 6 POW programs over the next 2 years. They said, I'll give you 4. I said, I need 6. I need 2 in Chelmsley. I needed Smithswood, Hobbs Moat at the time then, and Kingshurst. So I need actually 8. I can't do without 8. So we got subcontract signed. Stephen Munday went away with my gratitude attitude box because everybody got
life
one.
Is a thought, and this thought creates a feeling. And if you create the feeling of seriousness, then you're in a very serious state. You are liable to have stress and strain and sickness and unhappiness and jealousy and everything else because of seriousness. Now, seriousness doesn't help you do anything in life but destroy yourself. And to me, whenever I heard that, it really resonated with me because I could just see it all the time, in every moment-to-moment experience in life. All I'm ever up against is my seriousness. And then in this extreme situation of lockdown, I could see everyone else was in it too. But I guess for me, I knew that it would pass, and I knew I could. I guess because of my understanding, I had a very different relationship to the people I was. And I just saw there was a real possibility in sharing that with people.
2017, Sharon was diagnosed with cancer, and that kind of stopped everything, all the groups, all the discussions, everything. She passed away June of 2018, and you can hear me starting to stutter there. So if I dwell on that too much, you know what happens. And so about 6 months later, about 3 or 4 months later, I walked through this door behind me. Behind that curtain's my door. Behind that door is my front door. And I walked in the house and I leant against that wall and I said to myself, I am lonely. And I repeated those words, but there was a swear word, a curse word in there. And I said, I am lonely. I am lonely. And that was when I started. I wanted to sort of start creating a community. and I wanted that community to help people. And that was when I started what I called Build a Network, BILD. It was Belfast Isolation, Loneliness and Depression.
Had really slowed down. And so as soon as I got into something where I really did need to think, I think, I started again. Also, I'd realised that the friendships that I'd made, and one particular friendship at college, where we were talking about things that were going on in our heads, what we were really feeling about things, sort of things you don't normally talk to other people about. We got very close, and we were having those sort of conversations. And I wonder now whether that prepared me to drop a lot of my thinking as well as letting go of the thing that I was clinging to. So yeah, that was my experience at the time. And I think I spent a lot of the rest of my life trying to sort of get it back or understand it, really understand what it was. A lot of choice about that. And I loved the singing, and I was happy to go. I think as I got older, and I found there were a lot of things that I wasn't
creating the experience from the inside out, then you trip and you feel insecure. But what triggered Sid's realization was a psychologist saying to him, he was going on and on and on about his problems in his marriage and how he was always an insecure person in Scotland and here and there and everywhere he lived. He said, well, Sid, you're not really insecure, you just think you are. And that's saying, like a avalanche, and it exploded his mind. And that was the beginning of his enlightenment, was that sentence that he saw. And he said to the psychologist, well, if that's true, sir, did you hear what you said? That means everything is a thought. Everything is thought. Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say that.
And the drinking became really bad there in Amsterdam when I was there. I was living on my own, a lot of drinking, a lot of smoking pot every day. Every day I was drunk. I did that for about 2 years, like I've come to be really good at in the years after that, like cleaning up my act when things became really hairy, only to start them over like a month later. So I found my way into advertising, worked there for 5-6 years, which was pretty cool for a creative guy. Being in advertising is a pretty cool job, and earned good money. And then it kind of bored me. So I quit that, went into writing music, and I was extremely bad at that. But I had this discipline. And when I am focused on something and I want to do it, I don't stop until I am at least somewhat versatile at doing it. So
it had been more rich. Life is more rich now when I'm not controlling everything. I'm more open up to that I don't know so much. I have to be curious and see. Maybe I can find something I didn't know about life or about me. So I feel that I'm not the same anymore. I'm not the person who was on that retreat center. It's not a part of me anymore. It's the past. That was a horrible experience to have, to live in my thoughts.
Yeah, we walked into, it's like a conference centre, an equestrian centre, so there's horses and stuff around. And we walked into this room, there's literally just a load of chairs in a half circle, like half moon. 2 chairs at the front where Mama Jade, as I call her, Jacqueline Hollow, sat with Paul. I don't know, the feeling in that room before anyone even spoke was just one of just love and connection. That was the most important thing, was just knowing you're all connected. Yeah, we just explored all sorts of things, about, even driving home. Why did you turn left and not right and stuff like that? Yeah, and it really got me more intrigued and more, I need to know more about the principles and, how does this work? So, yeah, But I listen to his lectures every single day about fail in the car. And the one thing I always say, I've got the wine lectures in the car on CD. And every single time I listen to
The
them,
play
I
was
hear something
basically
different.
trying to say follow Christianity to get to heaven in a sense. But the part that was very like telling for me was a guy showed up to get on the train and he didn't have a ticket. What he had was, he said, my grandmother went to church every Sunday. And they said, well, what does that have to do with you? And he was like, no, but my grandmother, she really was into the church. She did this. And he was using all of everything his grandmother did for him to try to get on the train, but they wouldn't let him on the train because it wasn't his, you know. And that struck me. And I realized all of my beliefs had came from what my grandmother, my mother, and my father had told me. Like I had no real beliefs of my own at that. I really just took what they said, my aunts, my older cousins. I took what they said and just went with it and never challenged anything. And so it was like unfit was the challenging of the norms. It was like put everything about your life in front of you and challenge.
And he said, well, the understanding that I'm trying to teach people is really simple, but they don't see it. And it's just boring to say the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And he said, but Linda, what happens is that people get hooked on the metaphor of the three principles, and they don't see what I'm using the metaphor to point to. And what I'm pointing to is pure love. And I don't know, there was something about that probably kept me going through the initial couple years of not being able to see a whole bunch. Because all my life, I had a conscious desire to know what love was. It started back when I was a very small child.